It's been interesting to look back and have the perspective backwards, the hindsight, to see how things prepare you for the next thing that you should be doing in life, good and bad. There's bad things that happen, or what we could classify as bad things: hiccups, challenges, heartaches, disappointments, pain, suffering, wins, losses, triumphs, successes, failures. Like, it all rolled up. All of those things pave the way for something beautiful to come next. I really, really believe that.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to the Sparks of Gratitude podcast. We are so excited you are here, and we are grateful for you, and especially our guest today, who is Scott Porter, a very dear friend of mine who I've known for a few years now.
Yeah.
Right. And one of the reasons we are such close friends is one of my deepest, most important beliefs or convictions is that connection is built through shared experiences. And we have shared some pretty intense experiences with each other,
yeah.
Right? And maybe some of those will come up. And
maybe,
if not,
yeah.
I mean, maybe message and we can talk about those at some point. Some of them, well, actually all of them are appropriate to share.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Right. So
pretty epic.
I will tell a story. I've been married to my wife for nearly 20 years. And
just congratulations. That's an amazing accomplishment.
It is. And you know what? That's
more and more,
it's
rare these days.
Because someone told me this a while ago, and so I repeat this concept to people sometimes. As we often talk about like great achievements or things we've accomplished through our life, but no one really ever says 10 years of marriage, 20 years of marriage, or whatever,
right?
as an individual accomplishment. And I think, man, that's one of the most meaningful, difficult, amazing things that I've ever accomplished. It's we're approaching 20 years. So coming back to why I'm even talking about that to begin with is I grew up loving Mexican food and all things Mexico and Mexican. And my dad grew up in Southern California when he was a kid.
Yeah.
And we just, if we ever went out to eat ever, it was Mexican food. And
obviously he's a very smart man
making Mexican food at home. And I just kind of thought, and spicy food, eating, lots of chilies, lots of salsa, Mexican food all the time.
Yeah.
So when I married my wife, and I just didn't think that was something to even notice. I'm just like, well, like Mexican food's the best. Like, what do you mean? And she's like, I just didn't understand. Like the Sparks just love Mexican food. And
she's like, I didn't know what I was getting myself into.
Right.
Here.
Well, we're getting somewhere. I promise to the listeners here.
I love this.
I don't know anybody on planet Earth that is more passionate about tacos, Mexican food, Mexican culture, anywhere ever in my life. And that may be a theme of our conversation today.
There's a good chance it may creep into the conversation here.
you think? So, in fact, Scott has, well, why don't you talk a little bit about your taco passion and your taco project?
Oh, yeah.
Hello, everyone. I want to thank you so much for listening to the Sparks of Gratitude podcast. If you like what you're listening to, will you please hit that like, subscribe to this, and tell us what you like about it in the comments. That'll help us get great guests and keep this thing going. Now back to our interview.
I mean, I think it was maybe like foreshadowing, because when I was a little kid, we never really had pets, but for some reason when I was little, we had 2 cats, and one of them was like black and white. And my mom asked me what I wanted to name them. And the answer was obvious to me: Taco and Burrito. I named these cats. That is the weirdest thing ever.
Well, and of course, Taco Cat.
I know, exactly. But I didn't think, that wasn't a thing back then. And I think it was just foreshadowing. I am forever grateful. You talk about like, not just a spark of gratitude, but like a burning, everlasting bonfire of gratitude for the fact that God knows me and he knows what I need to grow and progress and to unleash the whatever capabilities or impact that I can have on the world. And that was made manifest so clear to me in the fact that I was called and sent to Mexico as a missionary when I was 19 years old. I was thinking about this the other day and talking with some friends. I was 100% convinced that I was going to be a missionary in Russia. Like I had a Russian ring and I was like, so mindset was like everything. And then when I opened up the letter that gave me my assignment of where I was going to be for the next 2 years, and it said Mexico, Tampico. And I'm like, yes. Like instantly Russia was gone.
No disappointment, nothing
None.
like that. It just felt right.
I have no idea why. I'd never heard of Tampico. I'd never been there. I didn't even I loved Mexican food, obviously, but
yeah, sorry, Italy, but Mexican food's the best.
I don't think there's even a reason to be sorry about that. So yeah, I am forever grateful for that tender mercy in my life of God giving me exactly what I needed. And I look back and reflect on all of my life since, and it has been such a foundation for everything that I've been involved in for the rest of my life. It's changed me. Mexico changed me. The Mexican people changed me. There was something so beautiful and raw about the warmth and just unconditional acceptance in Mexico with the people that I interacted with. And I was visiting people in their homes. We were talking about God and we were talking about religious things. But we were also talking about regular life things too. And this idea of like, mi casa es tu casa is very real. Like you instantly come, you knock on a perfect stranger's door and they welcome you into their house and they give you food. And you're like, wow, where did this? And we didn't do like the besos on the cheeks, or the kisses on the cheeks, like you do as non-missionaries, but we saw that warmth and everything was about like, you walk into a room, you shake everyone's hand. Like that is an acknowledgement of that person matters and you matter. And this idea of, and then there's the food. I mean, the food, which is like a love language in Mexico. And they genuinely care about what you think about the food. And luckily, me, along with like every other human, is like, it's delicious and I want more. And then there's the spice, and they just like, there's so many layers to the experience in Mexico that really changed me forever. And made me realize that I want to be more like that. I want to be more warm. I want to be more loving. I want to be more kind, I want to think of others. It's very outward focused. Mi casa es tu casa. Like it still happens all the time. I mean, it's just part of Mexican culture. I get in an Uber in Mexico City to go to the hotel or whatever. And I'm like, within seconds, I'm like, hey, how's it going, Raul? And he's like, oh, great. And I'm like, how long have you been doing Uber or whatever? And I said, well, where do you live? And he says, I live in like Condesa or whatever. He's like, ahí tienes tu casa. There's where you have your home. And I'm like, I met you 30 seconds ago. And you're like inviting me to your home, and not only saying that it's your home, you're saying that is your home and you can go anytime. And that's real. That's a real thing. And that type of love and unconditional like care for the human in front of you is very real. And it's changed me. And so, and that, like you asked me about my love for Mexican food, but it all stems from the people and the culture. And the food is really just this beautiful showcase of all of the best things, many, many of the best things of a culture that's so open and loving and warm and fun and spicy and, like everything. So for me, as my life unfolded and I look back and see all of the steps of preparatory steps that have led me to where I'm at now, it's all led to this idea of how do I better increase my positive impact that I have on others? And as I was considering different ways for that to take shape, not just in my regular life, but professionally as well, that's when I came back to this idea of food. I'm like, well, I've always been on this search for the perfect taco. And I've found myself over the years in the trainings that I've done and in the different businesses that I've run and that I've worked in, I've always used the most simple examples at taco stands of how they have created these bonds of human connection that I'm like, this is the masterclass, are on the streets of Mexico City, where we can experience the same level. Like when we were there, on the corner there, you remember that corner we went to, the blue corn tlacoyos, right? They'd been there for 40 years, and they're, I mean, who knows? They're sitting on plastic buckets turned upside down, and they're using the most rudimentary things, but crazy good food, and like with nopales on the top and everything else. And the level of care and personal touch that they gave us was probably very similar, if not even more warm and welcoming and better than we had at Pujol.
Right. And
which is the number 5 best restaurant in the world.
When they watched us eating their food,
the best,
they were laughing and smiling and so happy that we loved it.
Yeah.
Right.
They genuinely got so much joy and fulfillment and pleasure from the idea that I made something that is bringing you joy now, and I think there's a lot to those layers as you start to pale those away.
And what I hear you for one, I'm grateful that it was Mexico. I do hope someday to go to Russia, sincerely, because
I'd love to go too.
Know more about. But from many friends that I know who did spend time in Russia, I think the experience would have been a little bit different when you approach.
I don't know if a borscht tour has like the same appeal as like a taco tour to Mexico City.
So I am so grateful that was.
Man, me too. I'm so glad God knew way better than I did, which is the lesson in and of itself, and lots to learn there. But because I think a lot of times we have these great plans, like we do that as humans, right? Where you want to be in 5 years, where do you want to be in 10 years? And you have these grandiose plans. And then I think a lot of times God like looks at you and looks at those plans. He's like, that's cute.
Yeah,
that's cute. Well, I mean, here's your real plan. And it's so different, but it's perfectly designed for each of us.
Yeah. Well, the old saying, how do you make God laugh? Make plans.
Exactly. Right. Oh yeah.
So something that you describe, I want to hear more about the search for the perfect taco.
Sure, yeah, for sure.
We can talk about how that culminated into this, our experience in Mexico City.
Yeah.
Something that you highlight, and I'll share some of my experiences too that are similar, is you keep describing your love for this experience in Mexico, the initial experience, and then subsequent experiences. You've spent many years of your life since then, in Mexico on this progressive amplification,
right?
Of I need more of that, and I need more of how do I be that, right? And so you're describing everything good about it. I look at it as people don't remember, and whether this is in my profession or with my kids or with whoever, when I'm interacting with someone, I might be smart, I might know some things, I might have some experience or wisdom, but when I'm interacting with somebody, nobody wants me to sit and tell them how smart I am, what I know, or lecture them on something. But people do remember how they felt when we were together. And so, and people spend a lot of money hiring coaches and business coaches to create a brand experience and a good experience in how they run their business or learn how to be better parents or anything. I firmly believe that focus on how people feel. How do you create that experience? Who are masters of that? Well, people making tacos on that corner.
Yeah.
The Disney company, has been a good example of that for decades, 100 years now of focusing on an experience. Well, you described your experience in Mexico and how it made you feel. But I can kind of tell that there's something going on in the way your brain works that's, wait a minute, I like that. How do I do that?
Right.
How do I get more of that?
Right.
And internalize it and to say, well, now how can I deliver that?
Right. Well, and not only how can I assimilate that into my way of being and my own personal ethos, but it's like now after I've been so changed by this unconditional warmth and love, I've felt a responsibility to help other people feel that. like for me, this is like my obsession of tacos, of course, is like the food's amazing. Like I think it's the best food in the world. I love it so much. I want my last meal to be that al pastor from Mexico City. So I'm probably gonna have to die there, but it is about the tacos, but it's much more than that.
The taco is a symbol
The
to
tacos
something.
is our symbol. It's the hook that we can all understand and that we can instantly get. And it's this great equalizer too, right? So you have like someone that's very wealthy next to someone that is maybe in a different type of position, not very wealthy, and they're like sharing salsa and pass me the lime and what'd you get and do you like it? And it's this great equalizer, like food is in general, right? But it's especially poignant there. And so for me, Mexico was such a gift for my soul, and me focusing on tacos and also churros are in a lot of ways my gift back to Mexico. And I just hope that I honor it. I hope that I want to elevate the Mexican culture and their mindset and thought process as not just a way, like a wonderful way to live your life in abundance, but also very, very impactful on a business and organizational level as well. Because our economy and our world has shifted from a consumer focused economy where it's strictly transactional to an interaction based economy, a relationship based economy, a connection based economy. We're demanding more from the places that get our money, time, and attention. We want them to feel like they know us. We want them to care about the things that we care about. And that's requiring businesses to think differently about how they're operating. It's not just I give you money, you give me something, and we call it.
Yeah, that's a very transactional approach.
Super transactional. And so for me, this idea of not just assimilating these great admirable characteristics into who I am, but now it's like, let's share this with the world, because this has the power to change all of us and help us all be wildly successful, not just as humans, but in whatever we're involved in, because this is the way that the world will continue to be, and even more so going forward.
Well, so with that, I kind of want to hear a little bit more of, well, what experiences were contributing to you be able to formulate your method of how am I going to assimilate this and deliver this? And, what was your journey there? Because you didn't just go to Mexico for 2 years. You didn't just, plug this all together. There was much more to it, right? It's been a little while since you were there for 2 years, right? So
easy.
So, but that was impactful. First of all, I went to Mexico with you a year ago.
Yeah.
And first, I love Latin America in general. There's something about it that is just different to me.
Yeah.
It speaks to me. In fact, my undergraduate degree in college was Latin American studies.
Amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
It was not excellent for gainful employment, but it was fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And I just love it. I love the history. I love the way it makes me feel. And, I spent time in Chile for a couple of years. My wife was born in Chile. I've been to Mexico many times, many Latin American countries, but there's something about it.
Yeah.
When I got off the airplane in Mexico City, and I'd been to Mexico City a couple of times before that over my life, but I remember getting out, and this is not in, the most beautiful part of the world, outside the airport. I felt it.
What'd you feel?
I felt the energy. I could feel it when I'm there. I'm like, I'm here. Like I knew that.
What kind of energy was it? Because I feel it too, but I'm just curious how you would describe it.
And I feel it the same when I visit Chile. There's something about it. And anytime I hear, somebody that's going, I'm like, I'm so happy for you. And when people travel anywhere, I'm excited for them to go. And I'm like, oh, I'm so excited to hear about it and so on. But when they say Latin America, Mexico, anywhere, I say, oh, you'll see,
Oh yeah.
And because I feel, and I don't really know how to describe what I feel, but I feel some energy that feels like, I guess, energy. I feel like it's energizing me. There's something that is lifting me, that's welcoming me. And I love it. And I just know that it's there. I feel like it's been calling to me, and it's like, okay, we're here. We're ready for you. I don't know what it is, but I felt it. And I'm looking at the other guys when we arrived, and I'm saying, do you guys feel it? You know, I'm like, and I'm just grinning ear to ear, so happy to be there. So you've clearly felt that. Yeah. But then, you know, what has led you to where you are now, which I want you to describe where you are now, you know, and you know, what you're working on now to deliver this. It's kind of all come together.
It's like a culmination of an entire life of moving forward with conviction, but still there's like a lot of gray, and I don't really totally know, but the way that I've always felt inspiration or nudges to do certain things in my life haven't always made sense, like from the standpoint of either logistics or finances or whatever. But there's something that I come back to this word called compelled. Like I'm compelled to do. I felt that way with my very first internship, to return back to Mexico for the first time after I was a missionary, to do an internship in Mexico City. I was driven. I was unstoppable. I had to get an internship. I knew it. I don't know why. Well, I mean, I know why now, but at the time I was like, I just know I need to go. And this was back in the day where you had to like buy calling cards, you know, and you got charged per minute. And I was like calling people and trying to dog down this internship. But now looking back, I mean, that summer set the stage for everything I'm doing right now in my life. Every single thing I'm involved in, which is really surrounded everything around Mexican food. So tacos and churros, and we can talk about that. But like the journey to get there was that was one example of feeling so driven and compelled, because I just knew that it was something that called to me, like you were saying. And I didn't understand why. I do now. And I'm, you know, you talk about gratitude. I'm forever grateful that the progress continued, and that I tried to do things in my life, whether it was moving to Seattle or returning to business school at BYU, moving to Washington, D.C., taking a job in a nursing home business, which, you know, I felt that was really important for me to help make a difference in people's lives. And no one wants to be in a nursing home, but let's create the most positive experience that we could from that. And that, my experience in the nursing home business, set the stage for all of the business consulting that I'm doing right now, which is brand experience and how to bring your mission, vision, values to life regularly, every day, every touch point, at every level of your organization. And so that was where I developed the framework that is now the basis for everything I do with tacos and vitamin T, is what we call it, for tacos and transformation. Something we need a lot of both of those things.
Right. Well, and in Mexico they say that vitamina T, right? Vitamin T.
Yeah.
And that's just colloquial. They just, you know,
it's the greatest.
And so you've adopted that and said, why not?
We need this. These are nutrients for our soul and for our business. These are essentials. And yeah, so it's been interesting to look back and have the perspective backwards, the hindsight, to be able to see how things prepare you for the next thing that you should be doing in life, good and bad. You know, there's bad things that happen, or what we could classify as bad things: hiccups, challenges, heartaches, disappointments, pain, suffering, wins, losses, you know, triumphs, successes, failures. Like it all rolled up. All of those things, you know, pave the way for something beautiful to come next. I really, really believe that.
So I interviewed someone named, I don't know if you know who Dr. Paul Jenkins is.
I don't know.
So you'll have to,
I need to get to meet him.
Yeah. We watched him, and his whole thing is, he's a positive psychologist, and talks about pathological positivity is the title of his book.
That's cool.
And one of the things he talks about is that everything is what it is. You just described, you go through things that you might consider bad or good or hard or wonderful. And he says, well, is it bad?
Right.
It's in fact exactly what it is.
Right.
And then our evaluation decides, is it good or is it bad? And that's because we compare it to, and this is something we're out of our control. We compare it to something that, because it always can be better or it can be worse. And how we think about what we're thinking,
classify it.
Right? If we get into that evaluation mode, and if we, this is where gratitude can step in and change everything. And the way I hear you describing it is you're saying all these things paved the way for building on and making something better, which leads me to believe that you looked at these. Now, the experience didn't change from being difficult.
For sure.
Yet,
perspective changes.
He gave an example of his son called him and told him, Dad, I have cancer. And he said, thank goodness I've been practicing for decades. I'm a positivity black belt, and I had to strive to practice my own principles and say, I'm so grateful that it wasn't his wife calling to say that he had died. He says, because this is better than that. I'm so grateful that he's calling to tell me this, right? And so if we say, if we imagine something that could have been worse, we say, oh, well, it's pretty awesome that it is what it is.
Right.
But then that frees us up to be in a mindset of creation to something better.
Right. Well, and I also think that there's oftentimes when we very quickly classify something, it's a very myopic, instant, in this moment determination of what that is. And when we choose this other path, this mindset of growth and progress and purpose, we step back from that instantaneous reaction, and then we can say, okay, well, I'm glad it wasn't your wife calling to tell me that you had passed, and this could possibly be something that will be beneficial in the future.
Right. So you described that you went through a whole bunch of, I know because you've told me before, you've trudged through some mud.
Yeah.
You've fallen on your face.
Not nearly as much mud as many, many others have trudged, but it's been my own mud.
Right. Yeah. Because it is what it is.
Right.
And you just described to me that all of these things paved the way. So, what lessons have you learned through some of those challenges? Oh, man.
Well, I was instantly, I was just talking, I thought back when we had change in leadership at Surf Air when we started the airline, and those of us that founded it were, for lack of a better word, like removed from our positions due to our investors. It was something that hurt a lot. We were so committed to starting the first all-you-can-fly membership airline. Like it was electric. There was so much energy, positive, like growth and amazing things happening for all of us. And to have that rug pulled out from under us, and then, all the blood, sweat, and tears and all the expectations and all the hopes and dreams that, this was going to be it for all of us, meaning we're going to be doing this for the rest of our lives. And then all of a sudden to not be felt like betrayal. And I think betrayal is probably like the worst emotion to feel. I think betrayal's awful. And so I remember feeling really going through all the stages of grief in that moment, like anger. Like I would just remember I went to the gym and I was just like, put on the boxing gloves and just pounded that bag, and runs on the beach and the whole thing, like just mad. And I remember the first couple of days, I'm like, okay, I'm going to let myself feel mad and feel slighted and feel betrayed for about 2 weeks. And then I'm like, I'm going to be done with that. I don't have time for any toxicity in my life. I don't want it. Like, I'm going to be mad and I'm going to be ticked and I'm going to feel pain and feel sorry for myself and all those things. Because I think a lot of times we don't allow ourselves to feel that. And we don't allow ourselves to feel the full range of ugly sometimes. So I did that. And the reason why I say that is because the similar type of situation happened when I was in the nursing home business. And I let like the toxicity fester for so long. And it was really detrimental to my spirit during the time when it was hard. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that again. I learned from, God knows this, but I learn from negative experiences. Like I'm not the one that gets like the great, amazing, exemplary trainer. I'm the one that gets the trainer that's not. And then I, write in my journal afterwards, I'm like, okay, these are the things that I want never to do. And I want to always, make sure that the people that I get to train don't feel what I'm feeling. So oftentimes, like I've found that. And so I remember that when the surf fair ended, I'm like, I'm going to be angry for a couple of weeks and just live in it and like just lean in. And then I'm like, forget about it. I'm like, I don't have time for this. Let's go. And let's like switch this gear. And that perspective, like your friend that said, it's like, okay, well, this is going to be an opportunity for incredible growth and development. I don't know what it's going to be, but here we go. And here we are, like 8 years later, 10 years later, whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, and you've created a lot since then. And I love that word creation. And you said something for me that you learned by basically going through hell from those negative experiences. I heard someone say too, that people who believe in God want to avoid going through hell or going to hell, but people who are spiritual have already been there.
Yeah.
And so it's like,
I mean, Jesus, he's like the greatest example. I mean, he went through all of that and worse. How are we immune?
Right. Well,
it's part of the mortal journey.
I love it. I love your motivation and your passion. And more than once in business, with dollars and time at stake, you've experienced those challenges.
Yeah.
Betrayal and heartbreak and so on. Yeah, you said, I'm going to allow myself to feel it this long. And maybe once you allowed yourself to feel it too long.
Too long, yeah.
But you said, not anymore. What am I going to do about it? And somewhere along the line, you've just plugged it into this passion, right?
Well, it was the interesting thing and great thing about what happened at Surf Air and that like abrupt change in the middle of my career was, okay, now what? And also there was like, well, I mean, the 5 of us talked about it. We're like, we kind of feel like we could do anything. I mean, none of us have any airline experience and we just launched an airline and we convinced people to give us millions of dollars to do it. So there was an empowering feeling and a really humbling feeling of like, okay, well, I could do anything, but what the heck am I going to do? And then leaning into this idea of, and it set me on this journey of lots of introspection and lots of like self-analysis and thoughtful, like meditation, prayer, like going to spending quiet time in nature, in sacred places of worship. Like all of these things were so important to me to figure out like, okay, I'm here. What do you want me to do? You meaning this is me like essentially talking to God. It's like, well, I'm willing to learn anything, here's what my life experience has been. And here's the gifts that you've given me so far. What do I do with these gifts? And and by gifts, I mean, not just beautiful gifts, but all the horrible ones too, that have happened, that have formed who I am. What do you want me to do? I'm game. I'm up for it, And so just spending time listening, waiting, working things out, having really meaningful conversations with dear friends and strangers and figuring out. And I really think that like the figuring out of Mark Twain says like the 2 most important days of your life are the day that you were born and the day that you found out why. And so I love that because I think that we don't spend enough time talking about the importance of each of us tapping into our unique reason for being, our reason for being here. Like you, Randy Sparks, like why are you here? You specifically, why am I here? What difference does the world need because of your unique characteristics and gifts and talents and weaknesses and strengths and everything in between? We need you. And we need each one of us. And so for me, it's a constant, and it just is this culminating like momentum building of digging into that more and more, and allowing myself to be molded and making steps in that progress, that ladder of progression. But I think that's the purpose of life, is for us to like spend our whole life figuring out like why we're here, why like specifically each one of us are here. And there's been a lot of things even recently with my father's passing that has punctuated that even more so for me. My dad, as you know, had suffered a debilitating stroke for the last 5 years of his life, and he couldn't move the left side of his body, and his mental capacity was compromised. He was still there sort of sometimes, and kind of had interesting views on what was actually going on in the moment. But there was this really special moment that I had with my dad when he was not even conscious. It was in the early stages of when he was in the intensive care at the hospital, and it was just my dad and I. And I remember, it was at a moment when it was really heavy, and it was looking like he could pass at any moment. He ended up living 5 years after that in a nursing home. But at this moment, it was heavy, and I was thinking about, like, if I were to speak at his funeral, like, what would I say? How do I express the importance of his life to me? Like, what the impact of his life has done for me? How do I express my love? How do I fully, like, express the way that so many people love him and the difference that he's made and all of the heroic qualities that he has? And then right in the same moment when you're faced with the mortality of someone that you love so dearly, I think it changes you, and you have just different eyes. Like, there's no way you can ever go back. You just have different eyes now because that person is gone from being with you anymore. And so that was all like going on in my head, and I'm like, what is this all about? This is me, like, in this, not in a conversation really with God in my head and in my heart of like, and I wasn't angry at all or upset. I was like earnestly seeking understanding. I know that our life, like collective life, has a purpose, and that life continues after this. Of course, like I know that, but this was more like personal. What was this all about? Like, all of a sudden his life is done, but like he had bad health. He had like some, strained relationships with like his parents. They got a divorce when he was in his late teens and was a missionary. He had some, a business that ultimately ended up failing. Like, all of these, he wanted to be a missionary with my mom someday when, but all of these unrealized things, I call them the uns. It's like unrealized, like, dreams, unfulfilled wishes, all unreconciled things that never will be reconciled in mortality. And I remember thinking, well, why does that happen? And what is this all about? And it was just in this moment that I just felt the room just like fill with so much love. And I felt like God came and just gave me this giant bear hug and said, it's okay. It doesn't matter. Like, this isn't the end. There will be so much more love, so much more tolerance, so much more understanding, so much more grace, so much more progress after this life. This life isn't everything. And there's infinite growth and opportunities and life and love after. And it was such everything, all of the complexities that we often face in this life, instantly for me were distilled down to like this one principle of love God, love yourself, and love other people. And literally nothing else matters. And so, like, It's one of the greatest life lessons that my dad's taught me. And he didn't share any words. It was just his life that taught me how important it is. It taught me that principle that really has simplified things for me and crystallized things for me as well. Like, that's really the only thing I care about anymore. And now I'm not perfect. As you know, I'm very far from it, but that's my motivation. That's my drive. And some of these other things that we get so worked up about in life, and we can get so frustrated with, why is this happening, or what's going on in our world? Like, what's happening right now in our world. It's so many
Conflicts.
bad, negative conflicts that are going on. And whether that's hitting close to home or globally on a global scale, there's a lot of that going on. And so but when I like boil it back down, it's like the only thing that matters is how I treat other people, including myself, and I mean, it's like the Mother Teresa classic. Well, she's like, well, why are you throwing these was it Mother Teresa? Something about the starfish, right?
Right.
Was it Mother Teresa? Who was it?
I don't remember, but
something about,
are you going to make a difference?
Are you going to make a difference? Well, I'm making a difference for this one.
Yeah.
That's, to me, that is what everything in life is like, distills down. And so if we can connect with people in meaningful ways, even if it's over a churro, even if it's over a taco, and then, I mean, that can lead to other more meaningful interactions. But there's moments that we have, that these moments of delight, moments of joy, moments of care and human interaction that we can create that make the world a better place, one human to human interaction at a time.
It's beautiful, Scott. It's beautiful. And I feel that from you. And I've spent those moments with you. And I really feel like I said earlier, focusing on how people feel, because I don't feel like you shared tacos with me or you shared churros with me. I felt like you shared your heart with me. And I mean, and this comes back to, I believe that what a churro or a taco represents to you is that.
Oh, 100%.
And so you've started a churro company so that you could deliver that to someone else.
Right. And
then you said, well, if I'm going to give them a churro, it's not just going to taste good, but this is going to be a special experience for them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. 100%.
And in fact, San Diablo Churros, look it up. San Diablo Churros, by the way, if you haven't tried it, you're in for something.
Sparks of Gratitude, sponsored by San Diablo Churros.
I am not sponsored. I am sponsored by how delicious they are. So, and this is one of the things, in fact, I love it so much, the experience that you give. This, that I mean, gratitude has been a very important thing in my life. I mean, it all started years ago when my wife challenged me to write in a gratitude journal.
Yeah.
I mean, people are going to hear the story over and over and over. But, and since then, and I've got several of them down here, I've given away hundreds of gratitude journals to people,
awesome.
because I want people to be able to have the gift of gratitude and that practice. And you know what? I don't write in one of those. I write in notebooks, and I have my gratitude journal daily, and I'm getting distracted, but I'm sincerely grateful for people. I'm grateful for the impact they have in my life, and especially with work, with my profession. I want to express my gratitude to them. And so I don't send out Christmas gifts to people for a couple of reasons. One of them is when you send out Christmas gifts, people get a lot of Christmas gifts, and those gifts are kind of lost in the weeds of everybody else's gift. So there's some strategy in this too. I won't deny that. But my fundamental principle that I believe in is gratitude. And I think gratitude is going to change myself and change the world.
100%.
If people can find gratitude. So I send out Thanksgiving gifts because I want to express gratitude. And
it's so on brand to send a Thanksgiving gift.
I mean, how could I not do that? But I send these churro kits, these churro party in a box kits that Scott's company makes, and they are amazing. And I've sent out several different gifts, but that is always the biggest hit because I'm so glad. It's an experience.
Yeah, right.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
and they're so delicious.
Well, I mean, yes, thank you. I mean, but the whole point is like, let's create memories at home. We get so much stuff. Like, like your life mantra, it's like experiences over stuff. It's like that. Let's create these memories that we'll be able to hold on to forever. I had one of my dear friends, Sam, she's like, she said that they were going to have a family gathering with their parents, and her father was terminally ill. And so they wanted to have, they made churros together. And she said it was one of the last experiences that they had with them. And it was just such a happy moment. And for them to be able to share together. And I just think like, man, that's what this is all about. Like at San Diablo, we talk about filling lives with happiness. Like that is what we do. We just happen to make churros.
Yeah, I love that. Now right here, I mean, this is not sponsored by Simon Sinek either, but you just basically described, his book is people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I mean, say it again,
we're filling lives with happiness. We just happen to make churros.
Right. I love it. It's amazing. And you happen to share taco experiences.
That's true. Too. We had so much fun.
Yeah.
I still remember you jumping off those cables in the Lucha Libre ring.
This is unbelievable. He takes me and a bunch of other guys on a trip to Mexico City. In fact, this right here behind, I mean, if you're just listening, you can't see it, but there's an invitation I have framed here, but it's my name with an animated luchador mask, and it looks like it's an advertisement for a Lucha Libre event.
Yeah,
but it's the invitation with me as the special invited luchador. and as part of this taco tour experience, Scott takes us to tour the Lucha Libre arena in Mexico City, and we think, oh, this is so cool.
So cool. Behind the scenes.
It was. And then it just kept getting better because they'd take us down to the ring, and they're like, oh, like we get an up close view of the ring. And then they take us to this back room, and they said, oh, we have something for you. And they handed everyone a luchador mask. And we're like, oh, this is so cool. We all get a luchador mask. And we had no idea what was coming. But we thought, well, this is cool. We get to actually go see the ring where all this happens. And then all of a sudden they said, okay, stand in line. And then the lights go off and the smoke comes on, and the announcer, the let's get ready to rumble, that kind of announcer, but in Spanish in Mexico. And they gave all of us luchador names and had all of us enter the stadium as if we were the biggest hero on the planet. It was something else. And then we thought, man, it just can't get better than this until real luchadors come out, like all suited up. And they said, oh, we're going to train you how to be a luchador for 2 hours and beat the crap out of us.
Oh, man. That is like a life memory.
I'll never
highlight.
forget it. And that's why I say experiences, relationships are born through shared experience.
For sure.
And I mean, that group of guys, it's
like
one of those experiences. And people listening, just think about it for a minute. There's somebody in your life who you shared an experience with. That might have been a short experience or a long experience, like a long, but think about that for a second. You can just look at each other and smile, and you know yeah. You don't need to say anything. You just have that connection. And I believe in experiences. Yeah. And so this is one of the missions that you have right now, is to say, well, how can I help people? Well, let me take them on this taco tour. You call it a taco tour, but what is it really?
Well, I call it taco tour mastermind. I always say that the saddest thing about Mexico City are the physical limitations of your stomach, because you literally want to keep eating non-stop because the food's so good. But unfortunately, our body fills up with food, and you literally can't fit more in. But we don't want to
stop it going in our mouth.
Exactly. It's a real struggle. And so we while our food's digesting, we have these experiences, these once in a lifetime things like the luchador experience or warrior, right? The warrior experience that we had in the Temazcal, and just really special moments where we connect with each other, with, the Mexicans that are there with us and are so kind and helpful and wonderful and everything. So it's it's all part of the experience that, I feel like if we can immerse ourselves in an out of context experience, we live in a bubble, no matter where our bubble is in the world, like we still live in a bubble. And like every time we pierce that and get out and into something new and different that we've never experienced before, it changes us. And like there's a quote about like a mind stretched by new experiences will never return to its old shape. It's, we will forever be changed with those types of experiences that are immersive and like involve all of our senses and get us doing new and different things we've never done before, like falling on our back on that mat.
learning
how those cables are really not elastic bands.
Yeah, when you're bouncing off those cables on the side of a wrestling ring, it is not a bungee cord.
Oh no, no.
It is literally a tensioned steel cable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the bruises on our
backs. It feels like it cuts you in half when you like bounce on it with your back.
Yeah, but
it's so fun, look at us, man.
Laughing at that, but then I see with every one of the other guys on that trip, most of whom I didn't know beforehand.
Yeah,
they're brothers.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And I think you served your mission in that in delivering that experience, because the brotherhood that it creates, but then the individual perspective. You've created an opportunity for people to do that. And what do you say your mission is? You want to give. Why am I here? How can I do good? How can I? And it's clear to me, this quest that you have to give that, and to give good, to create good, to start a wildfire.
Yeah.
And I love it. I certainly feel it. I'm grateful for you, Scott.
So grateful.
I love you
for
forever.
You
and
too.
I'm so grateful that you came to talk with me. Can we do this again, please?
Heck yeah, anytime.
Yeah, we'll dive in. We'll talk about the Temescal. We could spend a whole
I know there's so much to talk about.
Experience on that. And I'm so excited for what you have coming next. And and that'll give us some things to talk about as well, some of the stuff you're working on.
Yeah.
On next.
Some fun stuff.
But I'm so happy. I'm grateful
for
you.
Thank you.
But before we end,
yes.
I mean, it's kind of shown in just the personal work that you do on yourself. You seem to have some daily practices. So what kind of daily practices do you implement, and is a gratitude practice part of that?
So I want to be much better than I actually am at my daily practices. I have really great aspirations, but when I do I do have a set like morning ritual, really is kind of what I call it, where I couple like meditation and prayer with, I read like holy writ. I like to get inspired by scriptures, and there's two things that I like to do and I've transitioned away from typing it to actually writing it. There's different like physiological reasons why that it can be better for you when you actually write instead of typing. You're more thoughtful with what you write. You're engaging more of your motors, like more of your senses in that experience of reflection. But there's two things that I write. One is I identify three things that I'm grateful for, and I identify what's the most meaningful thing that's happened to me in the last 24 hours.
I like that one.
And it's been so awesome to because sometimes because that question that I've found, and even though I've been doing this for years, the question that I've found that when I do that is that sometimes I really have to think. Like it's not, and sometimes I feel like, man, I didn't have anything meaningful happen in the last 24 hours. I just worked or I just XYZ, whatever. Or maybe there were a number of things. And so it's like, and I'm not constrained. I mean, if there were a number of things, I write a number of things, but it's good it's been very meaningful for me and helpful when I go back and I remember them better. I remember those teaching moments where I was taught, different life experiences, what's coming next, or to go back and reflect. But I love that. So those are kind of my big things. I'm looking to incorporate some other things, but all of a sudden my morning rituals, like, and then I work out and, whatever, but it's like all of a sudden the morning ritual is like 2 hours, 3 hours long. Like, I got to get stuff done.
You got to start getting up at 4 a.m.
Exactly. I know that is not a strength of mine, but I do get up fairly early, but not that early. Yeah. I'm not Jocko's.
Well, I love, well, it's important to me to hear you say that, and thank you for sharing what your routine is. And one of the reasons I like that is I felt like you, where you had felt compulsions or nudges to do certain things.
Yeah.
My wife, Kathy, and Kathy's not here on the podcast today, but we've for years felt the nudge to create sparks of gratitude, but didn't know what that meant, what to do, when we were just kind of at a loss.
Yeah.
And, one of the first things was, well, let's call it sparks of gratitude. And then we said, well,
so perfect.
Well, but now what next? And today, Scott, I still don't know.
Yeah.
But every person I interview, it starts to become more clear. And I feel like it's not so I can tell anybody anything wise, but it's so that other people can share their experiences. Yeah. And I think putting new light, new experiences into the universe, just putting good out there is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And I hope somebody else might come along. But if for nothing else, if it's for me, I already won. Like this.
Well, I mean, I want to acknowledge how amazing it is and honor you and your wife for like taking that step into the dark of, I don't really know what kind of shape this is going to. I think a lot of us as humans, we're a little bit reluctant to, like, we may feel something, but we're like, well, I don't know how that is. And we want to know all the answers. We want to know, like, well, what's the outcome, or what's it going to be? Or we want things defined for us. And I think it's not really the way that it works.
Yeah, I don't think so.
It's not. I mean, if everything was super clear at the very beginning, we may not even do it then. And so but the purpose is to just like, the purpose is progress, and like I mean, and you don't know exactly what shape that's going to take. And I think it's beautiful. I think this is amazing. I'm so glad you started a podcast, because ever since I've known you, you're like talking to me about sparks of gratitude. You gave me a journal. I love it. We've given them out at some of our events. And like, it's just, you have been a light of gratitude and an inspiration for me and for so many others, of incorporating and integrating gratitude into your life and into your life. And so it's going to be so awesome to see what shape this takes going forward. Like, what this is going to look like. Who knows, but that's amazing. And you're just like taking the next step forward and just trusting in the process.
Yeah. We just want to put good out there.
Yeah.
Just hopefully
and that will be magnified. That'll be amplified, and that will touch lives for good. And it's amazing. So
we're excited to do it, and
I'm
we're
so
also
grateful.
Nervous.
Of course.
We're scared.
That's the way that it goes. Yeah.
But if I get to spend an hour of my day like this, I mean, come on, people. Thank you. Sincerely.
No, thank you. Thanks for having the courage. I think it takes courage is like pushing through the fear.
Yeah. I tell my kids all the time, you can't be brave if you weren't first scared.
Yeah, absolutely.
Afraid. Like,
it's natural.
Those two can't exist without the other. Right?
Yeah.
If there were no fear, then you are not being brave.
So I think, who was it? The Book of Joy. Have you read it?
No, but I'll put it on my list.
You have to read it. It is so good. It's a conversation between the Dalai Lama and the Archbishop Desmond Tutu.
You've told me about it. Yes.
Oh. So I can't remember. One of them says this in the book. He's like, courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. I love that. It's like what you tell your kids, fear's there. So it's when you're brave, when you have courage, it's when you
lean in,
triumph over that.
All right, now I'll practice doing that. because it ain't easy.
I know. I mean, that's the journey of life. That's the more mortal experience, right? It's not easy, no matter what situation you're in, whether we're in a comfortable office in South Jordan, Utah, or we're in Israel or Palestine. Like it's no matter what our life situation is, we still have an obligation to be lights, sparks of gratitude and goodness in the world. So I'm just inspired by you, inspired by your wife, and what you guys are doing to help us all remember that. Remember how important that is.
Well, thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. We'll see you guys next time, and we're grateful for you. Thank you.